once again, the Academy Award this week for wrestling.
My God, like if there's got to be a best actor somewhere out there for pro wrestling, and Paul Heyman is just running away with it. My goodness.
I love this full circle moment because he's been here since, the very early 90s with this whole entire thing, and then just seeing him be so invested into this company as it is. And the full circle moment, I was like, this man's a damn genius.
And not to rant because we haven't even started yet. Like, there's stuff Paul did during ECW where you kind of saw those acting chops and you were like, oh, this guy knows how to sell and tell a story a certain way. And even some of the later work he did when ECW incorporated, and then you had him and Brock heads up and him and Vince heads up when they were still doing things. Like, wow, there's some acting here. Vince was always kind of faking it anyway, but Paul Heyman has always had that underneath. The last 2 years, it's just been like, my God, open a studio, Paul Heyman. Jesus.
He is the modern day Paul Bearer.
Yeah, Paul Bearer.
I would agree, honestly.
I think Paul Bearer kind of set up that foundation, but Paul Heyman has excelled.
Paul Bearer walked so Paul Heyman could run.
There you go. That's a t-shirt. Can we have that t-shirt somewhere?
Or in this case, because we referred to Paul Heyman as a penguin before, Paul Bearer walked so Paul Heyman could waddle.
Is Colin Farrell going to play Paul Heyman in the Paul Heyman biopic?
I mean, honestly, I'd be kind of here for it.
Let's have Danny DeVito doing his penguin costume from Batman Returns.
Someday when Vice News does the bio of Paul Heyman, it's got to be someone in it. We haven't even started yet, and we're running our mouths. Mikey, go! Mikey, go!
Well, I mean, it's good to run our mouths because this is an excellent episode of Smackdown. But hi, all you BC WrestlePod nerds out there, and welcome to another rendition. And this is the final edited review of the Friday Night Faction review, your weekly Smackdown team. I am your host, Mikey. Joined with me, as always, is the Miniford, and then the Professor John. Hi, boys.
This is a fun one, and
I have no cold open, no nothing. Because I'm like,
let's watched go. Like 4 people get murdered in the past month, and we're still okay with this.
So much murder, but murder in like a fun way. If there's a fun way to murder, like murder in a
fun way. That's a T-shirt I've ever fucking heard.
WWE murder in a fun way. I kind of like
try this at home, kids.
Yeah, I like the way they're just sort of sprinkling felonies on top of their product like a garnish. It's kind of nice. It's refreshing in a way.
I think at this point on my crime counter, I feel that we collectively, the Bloodline, have surpassed Randy Orton's record of on-screen felonies, because Randy Orton may have murdered a few people. He also is an arsonist because he set Bray Wyatt's house on fire.
Yeah.
I think the 2009 Randy Orton year was like, you can't top that when it comes to crimes.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say
he punted everybody in the head.
That guy was a PO's worst nightmare, right? Like everything was on camera, everything had evidence. It's like, Randy, don't light anyone on fire. Okay, and then next week,
there was nothing they could do about it because he had a mental condition.
There are voices in his head.
He had like intermittent explosive disorder or something like that. He got looked at a psychiatrist, and he had like a mental disorder, so they couldn't stop him from punting people in the head because he had a mental disorder. If they fired him, he'd sue him for discrimination or some bullshit.
Man,
that was the storyline. And he got away with it until John Cena ate him like 17 times.
That's actually a really brilliant idea. Before we get into it, and we'll get to this when we get to our ratings, this was a great SmackDown. There's only 1 or 2 things that I was like, okay, maybe that could have been better. Okay, you could have done this, you could have done that, sure. But this was fantastic. The thing that held this SmackDown back had nothing to do with the performers or the storylines. It had to do with the meddling of the TV people.
The amount of times that Fox made my screen go black, I was so mad. I was like,
arbitrarily. And if this had been an NFL or any other sports thing, they would have let it ride, or they would have muted it a little bit. For some reason, they really capped on this.
They did hard.
And I don't know why, and I could understand, and this is sort of the story behind the story. I know we haven't even started the review. There's a lot of outlets who are saying that, yeah, the performers are really upset. Triple H is really upset. Like, why did you take this out of our hands and just sort of hack and slash this thing? It explains a little bit more of the move of WWE to Netflix, which we'll talk about. And of course, anyone who's watching this, by now that the last 30 minutes of this were almost impossible to watch because there were just
Like,
whole blackouts and chunks.
blackout screens,
They get
everything.
momentum and cut it and whatever else. They were cutting off Corey Graves. They were cutting off Wade Barrett mid-sentence. So they were.
There was maybe like only one part I was like, yeah, fade to black, because Mr. Knight almost showed his Hollywoods out to everybody in that pin.
Oh, is that what happened? Oh,
yes, somebody.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I watched another feed and there was a different camera angle from the side. The way that LA Knight got pulled in when he got rolled up towards the end, like
Sure.
almost the
McNuggets.
The McNuggets almost came out. I was like,
Knights,
oops.
The Knights almost fell out of the horse. Yeah, that's
Yes.
tough. That being said, and when we get to the end, we'll talk about it. This was a great SmackDown. They are leaning on the soap opera thing, and they're doing it. They're walking that line between the wrestling show and the soap opera thing now. They're not leading too far soap opera, and it's working.
Triple H is saying this isn't sports. This is like a movie about sports. It's how he's explaining how he's doing everything.
Sure. How about that?
Which explains the super thematic wrestling we've been getting for the past little bit.
All right, so now that we've had our cold open, let's dive into everything, because, again, there was a lot of things that happened this show.
They did, because,
I also feel that the venues
Nailed
also
it.
determine how much they throw in, because we were in Madison Square Garden in this one.
Right. So this was...
Shout out to,
the
scale back set. I love that.
Yeah. And we found out after the fact, or at least I did, that there was a whole presentation beforehand with Cody Rhodes. I'm talking about his dad winning the belt here, and then they had a replica belt, I want to say, or the belt it could have been as well. They also said goodbye to, I'm forgetting her name because this is her last SmackDown, I guess. Like, is she gone after today?
Kayla Braxton.
Yeah, but is this her last day?
Yeah, it's her last show, and she's, after 5 years of being WWE, she is leaving.
Yeah. So. But they gave her, I saw that, they gave her a really nice send-off, which was super classy, and I thought that was cool.
Love it.
So
Love me some Kayla
I did watch the YouTube video of that. So this crowd was fired up before we got to this, which I think explains the pop that everyone got, because I don't mean to take away any of your thunder, Mikey. Cody was so professional in that YouTube presentation they had before this, and then flipped it into murderer within minutes of the thing.
Well, let's talk about witnessing murder on our screen, because SmackDown started with the recap of last week with the debut of Jacob Fatu, which then led into the Bloodline coming out, but we didn't even get that far, because then Team Homelander comes in and everybody just starts brawling with each other.
The 7 showed up.
Yeah.
By the 7 we mean the 3.
Yeah.
The other 4, the other 4, the voice, the 3, and then the other 4, the voices in Randy's head.
Randy is fighting for five people at this point.
There's got to be a few. I'm fighting for 5.
Let's be honest. The highlight of this whole entire thing, Kevin Owens is like, nah, I'm just gonna hurt people and swantons onto that table.
So is there an update on Kevin Owens? Because he messed himself up, it looked like
he did. I couldn't find anything that he sustained anything like super bad.
Yeah. Now,
I will say this was definitely a lot better, because the worst I've ever seen from Kevin Owens still in this day and age was Fastlane last year, when he and Sammy were fighting the Judgment Day. Right. And it looked like that when Kevin Owens did the swanton and landed, he like almost broke a wrist, and he looked like he like ricocheted too when he landed on the floor.
I think he did break his wrist, right? Wasn't that the whole thing? He did that whole thing and all of his body landed right on that forearm.
Yeah, and I was like, no!
And then you see him trying to use it the rest of the match, like, oh my God. And then he gets a second win, puts on the hockey jersey and the glove, and still is able to... Oh, ridiculous.
But yeah, this is just a whole brawl that takes us to our first commercial break. And then when we come back, Nick Aldis has security. Bloodline is in the back. We have Team Homelander in the ring, in which we get the promos from everybody. But Cody probably had my favorite line of this whole entire thing, calling out the Bloodline, saying that he wants to defend this title and he would do it tonight. And then he called the Bloodline. It's just like, you're not this. It's like, you are not the main event. You are just a seat filler. I was like, damn.
Mm-hmm.
They called out, bro.
Yeah. The promo itself was a little shaky at the top, because I don't think any of them knew what to say. And I think they were a little too in the moment. So Kevin Owens kind of grabbed the mic and calmed everyone down for a second. And then we took off from there. I love the touch of adding New York's Finest. What's hard for me with some of this is they kind of, half of them were the security guards they just used. And they just threw a jacket and pants on him and sent him right back out there.
Hey, that security guard that ate that Crossroads.
Okay, it's
That was
now
a
legend.
beautiful Crossroads.
Everyone's talking about that dude. That guy, and then the guy who ate the stunner from KO was like, oh,
dude, those security guards earned that paycheck that night.
And they're in New York. They got local talent that was hungry for it. They knew they were in Madison Square Garden and they went for it. Absolutely awesome.
There's a lot of wrestling schools out in New York too, if I remember correctly.
The Eastern Seaboard? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You got a mini fridge in your podcast studio?
I'm jealous.
Man, I got Halloween decorations. You got a mini fridge?
Minnie has a mini fridge.
Your nightstand is a mini fridge?
I'm doing it wrong.
I'm doing it way wrong.
I still have a recliner in my room too.
Oh.
Yeah, but you also look like you live in a murder basement.
This is my
that's
bedroom.
Adolfo.
This is a normal bedroom.
Oh my gosh, but
Go, Mikey, go. Go, Mikey, go.
this was
Murder
just a chaotic
basement.
beginning.
I'm not fucking the lucha, don't.
That's true. Moving on from that, because I was about to say something, I was like, demonetized. Anyway.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But
Hey, we're 12 minutes in. We're good.
that's true. Chaos is what started the episode. Some security guards. Yeah, security guard earned their paycheck, which then led to Nick Aldis sending Team Homelander home for the evening. Because they're like, yeah, we can't be doing this. I was like, well, I guess that makes sense.
So hear me out. Okay, hear me out. The Bloodline has been murdering people for the past few weeks. Drew McIntyre kills fucking CM Punk on Monday, right? But yet when Cody Rhodes and his friends come out to try to steal the Bloodline, they get sent home?
Yeah.
They're the ones that get into trouble?
It makes sense because usually the way, in hindsight, if we're going to get very, by the book about it, usually if you are the one that starts the fight, you usually get the one that gets sent home because you were the initiator. And
nobody has gotten sent home until now.
Which is great because then they're answering the small little pet peeves. I was like, so is nobody enforcing rules here? But I feel like Nick sent them home. He's like, look, we still got a show to get through. I'm protecting everybody because nobody needs to get hurt before Money in the Bank.
Sure.
So they're gonna come into full force next Friday, and it's about to be on and popping. That's what it's gonna go down to be. And as soon as Team Homelander gets sent home, they're just like, all right, let's start the rest of the night because then we just jump into our first match of the evening. This is the first of two women's Money in the Bank qualifying matches. This time around, we have Tiffany Stratton taking on the Poison Pixie, Candice LeRae, and Storm Incarnate herself, Miss Jade Cargill. I never get tired of Jade's entrance. It's so fun. I forgot that Candice was from Riverside, so shout out to her. She's a local girl, kind of.
Shout out River. Well, you Southern California. Riverside falls into that, oh yeah, it's an hour away sort of radius from everything.
Right. That's very fair. So as far as this match goes, I thought this was okay. I didn't hate it. I thought it was good. I will say my enjoyment of this match was severely slashed by how often they cut to black. They did it twice here, especially when Nia Jax came out. I was just like, oh, darn it, Fox. I was like, I'm trying to watch the match.
So the story, I'm hearing conflicting things. There's a story that there was a kid giving the bird to Nia Jax as she walked out, and that was the reason they pulled it. But then they let it ride an extra, 20 seconds because the crowd went all in on yelling something else. I couldn't really catch it that they didn't want to bleep, so they cut the feed longer than they really needed to, because by the time they cut back, Nia Jax was long past the kid that initially did the thing. I don't know how much of that's true or what makes sense, but this was kind of the first of 100 cuts that really
cut
sucked.
the feed because the kid flipped off Nia Jax. Let's go back to Clash of the Castle. That one dude I see a Punk.
Yeah, there. All of it, I don't know, man. I get it to a point. I'm not sure what Fox is trying to do this squeaky clean thing when Fox used to be the big place to be edgy and do scary things forever. And now the last few years, it's what are you doing? I don't know. I thought this match was fun. It didn't necessarily go the way that I thought it was going to go, but it kind of went the way that I thought it was going to go. But as far as women's matches on the TV, this was great. This was a lot of fun. Jade Cargill tossing her like she was nothing. Just insane feats of strength. I was a little, wait, what? By the end, and we'll talk about that in a second, which kind of ties into the next match a little, I guess. I thought that could have been a little cleaner, but that's just me being nitpicky. This was fun to watch.
This definitely was a fun one. And again, I hated the black screen the twice that it happened in here. And I'm just like, really, Fox? I was like, okay, well, it is what it is. I gave it a pass. And then when we get to the men's qualifier is where I started having big beef with Fox.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So Miss Tiffy time is going to Money in the Bank. I love this weird friendship she and Nia Jax have got going on. It's like
its own mini heel faction. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love for them to run with it, but ultimately Tiffany is going to Toronto. That crowd's gonna anywhere it seems that Tiffany goes, the crowd is gonna go nuts. Elimination Chamber.
Like those random Perth, Australia, they just love Tiffy time.
Yeah. Chelsea's moonsault was actually really good too, by the way. Just saying.
Chelsea and Tiffany both. I love seeing the women do more moonsaults. She got some
air off that middle rope, like oh my, and then immediately jumps to Tiffany. But still a fun qualifier. I had fun watching this.
It definitely was. So Tiffany is moving on. We cut backstage. Naomi and Bailey have a quick talking segment where, we're still positioning them as friends. But Naomi does bring up, if I win Money in the Bank, girl, I'm going to cash this in. And Bailey's like, yeah, we'll worry about it later. Which then prompts Blair Davenport to come in and interrupt and says that Naomi doesn't have to worry about it because Blair is going to be winning and moving the match and moving on to Money in the Bank in Toronto. I will get into that match because at first I was like, I don't really like this match. And then when I went back and rewatched it, I was like, oh, so that's why a lot of this happened. Because I spotted something.
Oh, did you? All right.
Which is, we go to commercial. We come back. Michin's backstage. She wants Nia Jax. I'm like, girl, are you sure? But Nick's like, all right, I'll see what I can do. Which then prompts Street Profits to also be like, hey, we have beef with the Bloodline. Can we get them? I was like, are you sure? Which then prompts the return of the Yes Boys. Pretty Deadly are back on my television screen, and I could not be happier.
I almost texted you the other day because I was like, where's Pretty Deadly been? Because I was like, he was hurt, but then he wasn't. And then they were kind of back and they hinted at something. And then all of a sudden they appeared and I was laughing so hard. I'm so glad you're here. Being a theater teacher, I was like, please show me this musical. Please show me this thing that you're talking about creating here on Broadway in New York. I really want to know. It's fun to see them back. And so I guess we get Street Profits Pretty Deadly next week, right? Is that kind of what we're hinting at?
That's what's in the bumpers. I also love the interaction these two had because Angelo Dawkins is like, hold up. It's like, why are you back? We don't need a musical. And then Montez is like, I got a better idea. Instead of the Pretty Deadly, the musical, it's Street Profits. It's like Street Profits verse. It's like Pretty Deadly about to get this ass whooping. Like,
Yep.
Montez I thought that worked just great. So charismatic.
Well, and not to, we could rant on this for days. When you get the charismatic, energetic improv actor folks, the performers that can cut promos like this. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. And they can riff and make this fun. Oh, it's just night and day. The types of promos that you can cut and storytelling you can do. And it's hard. Not all of them can pull this off. And I think they all think they can. But when you get that little hint of ensemble, the four of them just going heads up, riff, so good.
Excited for Pretty Deadly and the Street Profits next week on the Go Home Show. This is going to be fun.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be great.
Alrighty. So this match is where my frustration with Fox and, sticking their hands in the censorship, it started to rear its ugly head.
Sure.
So
sure.
We have our men's Money in the our final Smackdown men's Money in the Bank qualifier. This is Santos Escobar, LA Knight, Logan Paul. Pulling an Andrew here. Santos and LA get their entrance. Go to commercial. Backstage, Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa are talking. Paul Heyman wants to know where Jacob Fatu is. Solo said, you know what? You are my wise man. I listened to you. He is not here. And tonight you're going to appoint me as tribal chief. So, we'll talk about it later. Which then prompts Logan to make this long-ass entrance. And then this is where the multiple black screens in like a minute happen. Because the crowd was booing and saying some not-so-TV-friendly things to Logan Paul. In the middle of him trying to cut this promo, which made no sense to me.
Yeah, kind of a weird promo. But the reason New York was angry was because he brings out Tyrese Halliburton,
Yep.
who is an Indiana Pacers star. And if you don't know the rivalry between Indiana and New York right now, huge. And then they just showed Jalen Brunson, who's in the crowd in the front right there too. So they kind of primed it. They have their own shirts you can buy on WWE exclusives, which
I'm
is
just
really
like, what is happening?
so.
I like that pun you did there. You see, you got them all primed up.
No, oh god, that just fell out of my mouth. I feel awful now. My mouth tastes of sweat.
He didn't want to.
Prime. I thought that's what got this was the beginning of the end of this being watchable, right? You have the crowd hot at Madison Square Garden after this. The place where the Knicks played those games against the Pacers and lost, going up against it, just the recency bias. It's still an open wound. Logan Paul decides to open it, and you're not going to get the crowd back after that. They were chanting all the things. And I had to run to the internet to be like, what are they saying? What are they saying? Which, it's not the performer's fault. It took away from an amazing qualifier match that I put on my list of matches for the year to go watch at the end of the year. I thought this was great work between all of them. Even the tiny slips and miscues they fixed on the fly. They had to deal with the hostile crowd. Logan Paul is still really good at this, and it hurts me to say that out loud. But LA Knight was incredible. There was a really cool moment. I'm trying to find it now. Where'd it go? Yeah, Santos did something amazing, and I can't remember what it was now. But I was like, oh my God, is Santos going to win this? But obviously it went a different direction.
I was very surprised, I'm not going to lie, of who ended up coming out the winner on this one. But it does make a little sense after Fox correctly decided to use its censorship so we didn't see the little knights fall off the horse. That pin.
Yeah.
But LA Knight pins Logan Paul to move on to Money in the Bank after we got both of our basketball players this was an overbooked part of the match. I was just like, well, and then the stare off, I was like, are we about to see this tag team match happen at some point? I'm like, what the flip?
If we're going back to WCW Dennis Rodman's A Wrestler days, and we're getting Shaq in the ring, we're getting NBA stars just swinging chairs.
This would not be the first time we see NBA players. Like AEW had Shaq team up with Jade Cargill to take on Brandy and Cody Rhodes.
And I mean, I'm not against it. It's not the best wrestling, but as far as spectacle goes,
hey, why not? Can beat Shaq versus Big Show.
Oh my gosh! I
mean,
about
sure, that. Yeah. I mean, that still has its place in wrestling history for various reasons.
Yeah. Or Lawrence Taylor, who was Lawrence Taylor versus Bam Bam Bigelow?
Good knowledge. Wasn't there? Oh God, there's a handful of. We could do a whole thing about the old school celebrity cameo matches.
Johnny Knoxville is still the best in my opinion.
Oh sure,
even Sammy killed it.
Or Umaga giving Steve-O a concussion because Steve-O didn't know what to do in the ring.
Oh my!
I didn't hate the ending of this. I wanted a little bit more out of it. I think they all got a little bit heady with the chairs and who's taking what cue off of what, and I think they stood in the ring staring at each other a little too long. But I think because what doesn't come across on camera is that the crowd was fired up and there was such an energy there. It's not coming across on the TV screen, but they just kind of stood there in the moment feeling all of that, which is I understand. This was great.
This match actually went all our matches went quite some time too. Yeah. Like, because in hindsight, we only had 3 matches on the show, but they all got like more than 10 minutes, which was fantastic. But yeah, Mr. LA Knight is moving on to Money in the Bank in Toronto. And then we immediately cut backstage where we see Baron Corbin and Apollo Crews watching on, and they get interrupted by Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo is getting ahead of himself. Apollo and Baron are telling Carmelo, hey, you need to slow it down. You're new to main roster. Like, you need to chill out, man. But Carmelo's like, nah, I'm him. And then he leaves. I was like, Carmelo's about to get thrown around Money in the Bank, and I'm kind of here for it. But he also is going to be throwing himself around because that kid is athletic as all heck.
Oh, incredible. And hopefully they're going to give him the proper push and things are going to go the way they need to. I was talking about him, I don't know, the 5 times I watched NXT 2.5 years ago about some of the work that he was doing. I hope he's just not jobbing for too long. I don't mean jobbing like he's that, but if he's been eating a few pins here and there, which I understand. So I'm intrigued. I'm not super hopeful, but I'm intrigued. I'm glad he qualified. We talked about that. What was that, 2 weeks ago? I guess a week ago. 2 weeks ago.
And he mentioned the fact too. He pinned Randy Orton to win that match as well, which is like even crazy to say that. So we go from here. We get this nice little video package that they have for Mr. Sika Anawai. Made sure I learned how to pronounce that correctly, so Roman Reigns doesn't come for me.
Roman Reigns and all 30 cousins come.
The whole family tree comes after
hundreds
us.
of them. The whole island.
We will be the 300 version where it's us 8 versus all the Samoans.
I love, and I'll say this quickly. I don't want to rant. I've seen 2 interviews. I'll say 1, 2, 3 interviews now, where they're talking about the Anai family and all of them and Fatu and everything. And every time the interviewer brings up The Rock, they roll their eyes and go, yeah, okay, he's related, but not really. It's like, he's related, but it's like High Chief Peter Maivia and then married this, auntie and then cousin and this. So yes, but not close like they are. Like they're a tightly knit. They knew each other, grew up with each other, and The Rock was, doing The Rock things. So yes, but no, but yes. So even they're a little like, is he in the bloodline? Yeah. Like there's a little bit of a, okay. Of course they want that money though. And of course they want that push though. But it's interesting to me. I just saw another one with Jacob Fatu talking about it. And you just see him roll his eyes like, yeah, he's like a cousin.
He's there.
He's there.
Yeah.
He's that bougie. So like... He's the bougie cousin. Right? It's like the equivalent to like my friend has a bougie aunt. It's just like the bougie uncle who's like, it's like, yes, but
we only tolerate you because you have money.
And I'm sure we all have that cousin or two, and I might be that cousin to a side of my family where they're all like, oh yeah, that's one of us.
I'm the one that's like, you guys are related to him, unfortunately, as I'm like doing something stupid in the background.
You're making it, man. You got a mini fridge as a nightstand, Minnie. How are you not the bougie cousin?
I'm not the bougie cousin.
Look at you. You got your 1-bedroom flat. You got a fridge for a nightstand. You got your own recliner.
That was my parents' recliner that they thought about getting rid of, and I said I'll take it so I can watch football in my room.
You're thrifty. You're great. You're probably the bougie cousin.
Well, yeah, because my rest of my family's broke.
I'm still correct. This joke still works in my favor.
Right, it absolutely does. It's like, you're only bougie because you make decent money at your job.
You're only bougie because you work for a living. Thank you. Wait, what?
It's like question marks. It's so great. I love it. But this was a nice little video package. And then when we come back for commercial, we get another video package for Andrade. I was like, man, I would love for you to win this Money in the Bank ladder match, but you're not. But then again, I've been wrong for the last 2 Money in the Banks.
I love Andrade.
Money in the Bank has recently come back to be one of my favorite stipulations because that almost got ruined a couple years ago when I thought Mustafa Ali was going to win, and then they decided to throw Bork Laser back into the picture all of a sudden, and he won that briefcase. I was like, "Are you flipping kidding me?"
Yeah, I remember.
Then we come to find out that
you were spicy Mikey on that review. I remember that.
I was so mad when
wasn't that.
And then we come to find out years later that it was like a last minute change, and Ali was told he was not winning this match. Like as he went out.
That's rough.
Yeah,
I love Andrade. I think Andrade's promo work has gotten better. His film promos are always really good. I think this is the 2nd or 3rd one we've had since Andrade came over here to SmackDown. His in-ring stuff, he's the strong silent type. He works better against that, which is fine. I'm not a problem. But such a good worker in the ring. I'm so glad he qualified. I don't think he's taking it now that we know that LA Knight is in. Yeah. I hope he gets pushed. I hope he gets his due because dude's just a monster and so much fun to watch. He is one of my favorites. But we'll see. Does it in pants too, man.
Him and LA Knight might have a good feud for the United States Championship.
That'd be great to see. Give me that 2025. Let's go.
Pick that off him. But I also think that there's a lot of women that are going to benefit super heavy once we get this mid-card women's belt.
Sure, yeah.
Seriously, I'm like, if NXT already has their mid-card women's belt, let's get mid-card women's belt for the main roster too, man. Come on,
I think they will. It's going to be super
at
Spicy.
SummerSlam. That's how we get lots of women's matches on the SummerSlam card, which I would be here for. But we go from this Andrade promo to, Professor mentioned earlier that was like this was kind of hard to watch, and that was my first viewpoint of this last women's Money in the Bank qualifier for SmackDown. Indy Hartwell versus Blair Davenport versus Naomi. When we got to the middle of the match, it started to seem that everybody was working in slow motion. And I was just like, why are we working in slow motion? But then, upon my second watch through, because I went through and watched the match with clips, I still can't pinpoint where, but I noticed, I was like, hold up, Miss Jessica, our referee, is wearing gloves. I don't see no blood. And then, from the midpoint of the match to the end, it seemed that, because I was like, why is Indy holding her hand in a tight fist like for the whole entire second half of this match? And then I was like, wait a minute, I think she cut herself somewhere, because I saw blood coming down to that hand. I was like,
really?
Where did she cut herself?
She messed herself up somewhere.
Yeah, so she was holding her hand, and I'm just like, she looked like she cut her finger or something, but it was enough where I started seeing blood, I think.
Did she cut it interfering in the last match?
I don't think so, or maybe something happened, because I know she got thrown over the stairs.
Oh, there's blood all over her hands. Yeah.
Yep. So I was just like, I don't know what happened or how she got it, but now I understand why this match was in slow motion for the second half of it.
That's
Indy,
tough.
And she did not drop a single ounce of blood on that ring apron too.
She was neat and
I was like, dang, Indy.
Yeah. Naomi really showed out. I love her Xbox controller uniform. I think she looked great. That's the one thing that stood out to me. She was doing all the things that she could. There was just so many miscues here and so slowing down. Blair Davenport was in position for a few things, like 5 seconds before she needed to be there. And other things, or like calling Indy over, like, hey, calling her over to things. So, and I'm not faulting them for that. This is hard. I'm not picking on them for that at all. But they were definitely heady. They were definitely in their head about what's going on and how this is going. I don't think they were cut for time either. I think they just got the yips. Like they were in their head thinking about what they got to do and how they got to do it. They got caught waiting for the end. They were absolutely anticipating what was happening at the end. They were waiting for a cue there. I don't know if that's anyone's fault or if they missed something there. Not the strongest showing. Naomi still looks super strong. That super kick sequence at the end, they clipped each other really hard, so they were still going for it. Tough. And I'm not excusing anything. They're in a tough part of the night, right? I'm sure they're all in their head knowing that, hey, we're getting censored like crazy coming off that Logan Paul, LA Knight, Santos match. So they're all kind of upset, right? Trying to stay in it, and the crowd is still fever pitch, knowing something's going to go wrong. Tough sell. Tough.
It was. But Naomi picks up the win here, which makes me super happy. Homegirl Naomi is moving on to Money in the Bank. I wrote in my notes that at the end of the match, after she pinned Indy, I was like, oh, she was so extra after what she did afterwards. Dude, I was just like,
she smacked the shit out of her ass.
Yeah, a little bit. We're just like, and I got you here. Wow, you're gonna remember this. Boom.
Bam. I was like, damn.
That was like, geez, smacked like they were a child doing something wrong.
She went full Urukai and just went bow. Make sure there was a handprint
I was
there
like,
for a while.
Jesus. It was so extra.
So we gotta talk about the entrance at the end though, and what happens next.
We're gonna probably spend the next whatever time we're got talking about what happens next, but we do get our SmackDown bumpers for the Go Home show next week. Jade and Bianca will be taking on Candice and Indy.
Oh no,
Street Profits.
When Jade came out here and hit Indy, she destroyed Indy's face.
Yeah, it was like
hit her really stiff twice. Bang, bang.
Crazy. But
oof.
Yeah, anyway. So that match is happening. We're getting Street Profits versus Pretty Deadly, which makes me super happy to see the Yes Boys back on SmackDown. And then we're also getting a WWE Tag Team Championship match with A-Town Down Under defending their titles against DIY, which then leads into this quick interview with DIY in which Austin Theory interrupts. And again, we're setting this up where Johnny Gargano is telling Austin Theory that Grayson is not his friend. He doesn't care about him, that he's only using you because you're the most athletic of the two. And I was just like, and then Grayson comes in and tries to make it look convincing, but I was like, you mean to tell me that Grayson Waller single-handedly took out Johnny and Tommaso? I was like, let's be all the way 100. Tommaso's beard could like destroy me in an instant. This man looks intimidating, and this is black and gold era OG DIY. I was just like, yeah, no. But I know why we're doing it. I don't know. I'm interested to see if titles change hands, but who knows?
I agree. It was a little like, there's no way he comes from out of nowhere and cleans you up like that. No. Especially trying to act like the tough guy. You're like, you think you know me? You know me, huh? You know? It's like, no, Grayson, you're not that tough guy. You're not that guy.
You know me.
You're not the hood, Grayson Waller. You're talk show Hawaiian shirt, Grayson Waller. I know why we're doing this. I know where we're going. It seems like we're going to milk it even longer. I thought the betrayal would be coming at the Money in the Bank. It seems like it might be coming a little after Money in the Bank based on this to me. It seems like they're going to throw the hook out there a little bit longer. I'm intrigued. I'm a fan of watching all of this. I'm glad to see DIY doing stuff. We'll see where it goes.
Okay.
You know, have you guys seen the Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano trying to RKO Randy Orton videos?
That sounds hysterical.
Oh my gosh, it is so funny.
Amazing. Like, they were sitting there talking about it, and Tommaso Ciampa, they did it once, and they're kind of just around the ring, before a show, and Tommaso just go, out of nowhere, and Randy just, like, move on the phone, like, just naturally, and he hit the ground, he goes, stupid. Oh, it's so funny.
I saw the second version when they were in catering, eating, like, lunch or whatever, and then, they're trying to cut this promo against A-Town Down Under, and then Tommaso's like, look, Randy's over there. I'm going to try again. And Johnny's like, dude, are we going to do this again? And then he sneaks up, and again, Randy's getting up to throw his trash away. Tommaso says, out of nowhere, Randy naturally moves away to go walk towards the trash can, and Tommaso full on like Charlie Brown's onto the table.
This is not related. I don't know if any of you, and I'll do this quickly because it's not related in any way. Maven Huffman's YouTube channel, where he's talking about his history and Tough Enough and everything. I love it. It's a great watch if you can. He's talking about his time with RKO, Randy, and all the times that they were in the car together and everything else. This just came out the other day. And in his video, it's about 15 minutes long. He's getting in the car and he's driving around town. And the joke is, the entire time he's talking about Randy, everyone in the comments is like, oh my God, he's behind you. He's just gonna open the door and RKO. Like, they're waiting the whole time for Randy to do something. And then the video ends. So now everyone's like, oh, it's gotta be part two. It's gotta be part two. It's just kind of, the whole fan base is like, Maven's gonna get RKO. When's it gonna happen? It's like, that's really funny. So let's talk about the last 30 minutes of Smackdown.
Holy crap. Okay. Strap in your laces, boys, because
strap in your laces.
Strap in your laces,
tighten your corsets. Yeah, all those things.
Tighten your corsets. Gird your loins if you must. That's my favorite. Like saying that I say randomly. Gird your loins.
I've never heard that one before.
You haven't heard that? Yeah, it's a nice way of saying tuck it.
Gird your loins.
Don't look that up.
we may have sent him on a whole rabbit trail of all these sayings, but
go, Mikey, go.
Yes, gird your loins, like strap in your laces, like corsets, everything.
Get your LASIK done, everything. Here we go.
Strap in, because we witnessed murder. We witnessed cinema. Okay, here's what I want to do.
We witnessed Def Rebel actually make a good theme music.
We'll also talk about that. I was like, Def Rebel probably got tired. It's like, I got to set my game up. And boy, howdy did Def Rebel did with this. So here's how we're going to do this. I want to go through the segment from beginning to end just really quickly.
Sure.
And then we just riff and discuss whatever we want for this whole thing. So the last 30 minutes of Smackdown, we have the Bloodline, which is Solo, Tama, Tonga, and Paul Heyman, the wise man, come on out. Paul Heyman does his normal Paul Heyman thing and tries to introduce everyone, but Solo makes him give him the mic. Solo does the entrance, and we're here to have an acknowledgement ceremony and bring somebody into the Bloodline, in which he calls out and has Jacob Fatu come down to the ring. So red flag number one, Paul Heyman immediately recognized Solo lied to him earlier in the night, saying that Jacob was not here and that he wouldn't be here. So it's like, oh, something's about to go down. It's about to get crazy. So Jacob
Ooh,
Fatu's
someone's
new
in
music hits. It is
trouble.
actually kind of a banger. I love the visual of the pyro, and the Samoan werewolf is going to be his moniker, like it was on the independent scene. So excited for that. Jacob comes down. Then we get the most beautiful cinema I have seen this week in wrestling, because Solo basically just does the whole ceremony on his own, and Paul Heyman's just an afterthought. He has everybody acknowledge him as the new tribal chief. So Tama Tonga does it, Tongaloa, Jacob Fatu. And then we get to Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman, and Solo tells him, this is your one chance. It's like, acknowledge me as your tribal chief. And Paul Heyman is blindsided because they have the necklace that was given to Roman Reigns from the Wild Samoans when he was anointed tribal chief 4 years ago. And Paul Heyman is like looking at Ghost, and this was a B-grade horror movie right here. He's like, oh my gosh. He was the embodiment, and this is a weird reference. He was the literal embodiment, seeing that in Puka Shell necklace, like Jessica Rabbit was like, oh my god, it's Dip!
Good knowledge. If you're over 30, you love that reference. Keep going.
I love Roger Rabbit. It's such a fantastic movie.
So
but
good.
I want to know, because I was like, did Paul Heyman like put something in his eyeballs? Because from when we started this segment to where we get to this point, his eyes are all puffy. They're red. I was like, it looked like he hadn't slept in days when he was fine earlier in the evening. But Solo gives him the necklace, tells him to acknowledge him as tribal chief. Paul Heyman, Oscar award performance right here, because he struggles. He says, I acknowledge, pauses, there's dramatic effect, we let it breathe. And then he says, I acknowledge you not as my tribal chief. Madison Square Garden goes nuts. But that spelled the end for Paul Heyman, because beautiful selling in the next couple parts here. But Solo, Samoan spikes Paul Heyman. Jacob Fatu just destroys and murders him from the top rope. And then we get a shield powerbomb of Paul Heyman through the table. He bounced on the table. He bounced on the floor. The crowd was out of control in terms of booing. The Bloodline do the one up with their finger as Smackdown goes off the air. Minnie, I'm gonna come to you first, and then Professor, we're gonna come to you. Minnie, in all my years, I can't believe I'm actually saying this, and me and you have this personal connection because we complained a lot about this when Roman won 2 years ago at WrestleMania, and we were tired of the storyline. And now we have reached another chapter with all of this. Talk to me how you feel about the progression of us hating the Bloodline storyline to now us being reinvested into it again.
I like watching Jacob Fatu struggle to get Paul Heyman up for the powerbomb for a minute. I thought that was funny. No, this is fantastic. Like, the progression of where the story's at, the change in the weekday from the enforcer to the weekday has been really good. And his like, nah, Roman's not here, man. Nah, fuck this. I'm in charge of everything now. And when Roman comes back, Roman's pop is gonna be huge. Like, this is the kind of Roman that should have been a face. This is the Roman that, Vince McMahon was trying to shove down our throats a few years ago when he kept main eventing WrestleMania with Brock Lesnar 17,000 times. This is what we've been wanting, and we're getting it now, and it's going to be great, and I'm happy that we're here to see this. It's going to be dope. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear that piano and everything when Roman comes back.
That pop when he returns is going to be crazy. But Professor, similar question, but on a different branch, so to speak. SmackDown has done a very good job within the last month or two, as we've talked about, upping the more theatrical aspects of their storytelling. But Raw and SmackDown always have good wrestling, but it seems that in the last 2 months on both shows, but specifically SmackDown, you coined the phrase that SmackDown is like our telenovela soap opera in a way.
Oh, yeah.
I want you to walk me through this as somebody who does this for a living in terms of teaching theater and in that world of theater. Walk us through the moments because I was invested as an audience member. Like, just break this down on a different level for us.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely can. So if you think, we'll talk about the Paul Heyman performance like you were talking about. What Paul Heyman did here, two things that acting most all truth in acting stuff comes down to is sort of this personalization. And in my experience, the sort of finding the truth. If the truth is Roman Reigns is my tribal chief and I cannot deny him, okay, that is my truth. And Paul Heyman has grabbed onto that in an act like an actor would. So anything that pushes up against that, he has this deep emotional connection to it. Something that I teach my students or try to teach my students, and sometimes I get it, is a concept of endowing the prop. A prop is not just a prop. It means something. That doesn't mean there's a story always behind it. Like, oh, a coffee cup. This is my dad's coffee cup from World War II. No. It means something to you in a way. And what Paul Heyman does sort of heartbreakingly is when that Ulafala comes out of the bag and he knows it's not supposed to be there and that it symbolizes the end of a reign or some sort of terror or loyalty or whatever it is that he personalized with. You just see him break down and he's devastated. And a good writer, like you talk about, we've been planting this the whole episode. Fatu's not here. Okay, great. 2 weeks ago, Roman's not coming back. What do you mean? Fatu appears. That's another murderer. That guy's even more dangerous. Well, Fatu's not here. Don't worry. Fatu is here. And we're doing this. And we're doing that. So the circumstances got deeper and deeper and deeper for Paul as the actor. And when you're breathing and you're being truthful in the moment, those emotions come out. And it's hard. It's easy for me to write it down and tell you as a teacher, all right, now go do it. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone is doing that. I would argue in my time watching wrestling, I think Paul Heyman's doing a beautiful job of it. Every now and then, Cody Rhodes gets closer to that vulnerability place where you're really pulling for him. AJ Styles used to get there, but the last few years has sort of been angry AJ Styles. There's a few of them that can put the emotion underneath it. And when you see that happen, you go, oh my God, I'm all in on this. And like we were just talking about with the bloodline, this is what was missing for that year and a half where we didn't care for the bloodline. There was not enough at stake. Now, the reputation of a whole family is at stake. Now you have a whole island, a whole country, a whole ancestry that's now at risk of losing its way. This is why we were calling for Rikishi and the family to show up as a tribal council. We needed some sort of history, some sort of something underneath. You could argue that when Vince was pushing Roman as a face, going, Roman, there was nothing underneath, and all the fans went, I don't care, you didn't give me reason to care. He's going to fight Brock, and Brock's a monster, so what? That doesn't mean I don't lose anything. So they were selling out the short-term bloodline to build this long-term bloodline. This could ride another year or two. You don't need to bring Roman out at Money in the Bank. You probably don't need to bring him out for SummerSlam. You can hint at it. You can make us wait until Survivor Series or even end of the year. And we'll finally be like, oh, here we go. Here's a reason. Let them wreck house for as long as you want.
Hold him until WrestleMania 41.
Right? And then you have to get Roman to fight to get the Usos back. You got to fight to get a number 4, which, not to jump into all the rumors, the rumor that Zilla Fatu's out there and could join this faction. The rumor that there's other cousins who are younger who are interested. Not to drop names because I don't want to be that guy. 17, 18, 19-year-old kids who are like, yeah, I might be a year or two away. Okay, tell you what. This does come at the expense of the rest of the roster, in my opinion. So there's a lot of folks. Now we're back in that bloodline paradox, right? Now, we love this. There's a lot of folks that aren't going to get run because this could take up so much space. If you're giving me 20 to 30 minutes, I'm willing to give you that because you've earned that. If we get into the 2 years ago where it was literally 50 minutes of nothing for a contract signing sort of thing, then we're off the mark. But Paul Heyman is holding this up. Paul Heyman is a pillar of this. I'm in.
I know. I forgot how the full quote goes. It's like when I thought I
thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Back in.
Yep.
Thank you, Professor.
Yep.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but again, I'm really excited. And as somebody who watches all the WWE product for this, Raw and SmackDown and even NXT. Raw and SmackDown the last month or so has kind of been great. Like,
Yeah.
it makes me excited to come back every week, but specifically to SmackDown.
And that doesn't mean I don't have issues with the company. That doesn't mean I don't like a lot of the behind the scenes things. And I absolutely agree with those of us here at Biconics who are like, I can't support that product. I absolutely get it.
I totally 100% agree. However, I also think, and we're not all so rigid, all of us here at BC WrestlePod, because when something is good and WWE does right by the fans, I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, you guys. Like, this is cool. And this is exactly what this is.
and I kind of justify it by going, yeah, but those performers deserve my eyeballs. Like, those are the folks that I'm pulling for. Granted, it is under a banner that I'm like, I have a hard time giving you money, so I don't know if I will. But absolutely.
And
the change in the company is going in a positive direction to the point where more people are starting to be okay with giving them money.
Yeah, that's a topic for another show. The fact that they're still covering for the old regime and the mistakes that they made and playing the old NDA trick, I'm still not a fan of that.
That's probably other people that are behind the scenes doing that, but with the creative portions of everything, it's starting to do a lot of good changes.
I hope so.
Rome wasn't built in the day, and the way that I see it is that it's going to take... I won't be afraid to say this, like, years and maybe like a couple of decades to undo the work and to kind of pull out the foundation that was the previous regime in order to start truly fresh, but starting small with the creative choices and the writing and the booking decisions of what we have so far. Since post WrestleMania, I have seen the directions we're going in, and I'm super excited to see where the rest of the year goes, especially leading into Money in the Bank, and then Money in the Bank, SummerSlam, Bash in Berlin, Royal Rumbles in February now. So, like, the future and the path to the end of the year looks bright. So, gentlemen, let's give our empanada ratings for this one. I'm going to give this a solid 8.5. I thought this was a very strong SmackDown. Obviously, a lot of my points get deducted because of the stupid reaching of Fox.
You just said what I was going to say.
Yeah. Had they, especially, during the first women's Money in the Bank qualifier wasn't as egregious, but the whole entire time we were watching Santos LA and Logan's match before, during, and afterwards of how much my screen went dark, I was so mad. I was like, no. And you're right, because it cut off Corey, it cut off Wade. Like, I was so mad. But everything, and even the kind of in their headness that was the Blair, Naomi, and Indy match, I thought those women did great, especially since Indy sliced her finger/hand open, which I didn't see up until the second watch through. But everything else, man, from the Bloodline segment to the contents of the match with Santos LA and Logan, and even just everything was paced so wonderfully. I give this a strong 8.5 out of 10 for this week's SmackDown. Professor, I'm going to come to you next. What do you rate this week's SmackDown?
So here, I'm going to say this, and then I got to qualify it. This is a 10. It's a 10. This is a 10. Knowing that Kayla got the nod from Cody pre, which they probably should have done on live. Knowing that Cody came out and talked to Madison Square Garden fans, talked about his dad, and they gave him that belt, and they talked about last time he won it. Leading into everything that we got. It's a 10. This gets like an 8.25, 8.5 because of the meddling of the censors and that getting into the heads of the performers about midway through, knowing that so much stuff is getting cut and so much stuff is not getting through the Fox censors, because you could tell that got on their case. It gets an 8.5 because that rattled them, and it's not their fault at all. All the performers of the night, if we were rating individual performances, well, this is, 9s and 10s all over the place. Paul Heyman's performances, 9s and 10s all over the place. The opening of this thing, fantastic. Who we got to see, who got a little bit of run, getting to see Blair Davenport and Indy Hartwell. I know not the greatest, but they were there. Seeing Jade toss folks around, fantastic. Nia Jax being Nia Jax and the crowd reacting. Tiffany and Nia becoming like all these things. It worked. Everything was there. And the producers and censors and people above the pay grade, as they say, cut it to an 8.5 to sort of mute their own product, which is heartbreaking. It's crazy. These are the 2 highest rated SmackDowns the last 2 weeks I have ever rated here. And I guess that would be probably, I don't know, we're coming up on close to 100 as this Friday night's crew, like we've done in the last 2.5 years, maybe. I know I've probably missed half of those, but this should be a 10. It's an 8.5 because of the meddling, and that just got in their heads. But I'm really impressed.
Yeah, like I had thought I had some cool notes to say, but y'all fucking said everything.
Well,
Y'all
just say them
covered
again.
it really
we're
well.
we're already longer than SmackDown. Go ahead, say them all again.
Like the piggyback off, they said, yeah, this SmackDown was phenomenal. Fox ruined it. This is Fox's fault. Like, if it wasn't for that, this SmackDown would be like one of the greats.
Yeah.
No, Fox had to come in and be like, man, we don't like middle fingers.
Right.
You know what? Let the people do, because they wanted to.
I think
hopefully with SmackDown going to USA Network later on in the year, hopefully that will solve a lot of issues.
I was just gonna say that jumping to cable, they can get away with 90% more. I think USA still might jump on them for a few things, but this is
they don't black our screen.
Well, this is the reason Raw's going to Netflix. Like, look, we got to compete with AEW. They're taking the cue from what AEW is doing. Hey, let the fans interact. Hey, get edgier in these ways. They're doing the WWE WCW thing from 1997, 98, 99. They're taking a cue from the competitor, even though they're squashing the competitor, and they're using it to polish their product, which is brilliant, kind of sad, but brilliant, and it's working. Incredible.
It is. And on that note, that is going to be it for the final edited review of the Friday Night Faction review. As it has been stated in all of the videos that have come out this week, starting July 1st, which at the time of this recording was earlier in the week, we are moving into an all live stream model for both the pay-per-views and the weekly TV shows. So you get to see us flub up in real time. It's going to be fantastic. But I am super excited. Our first live stream episode of Friday Night Faction will be next week. And stay tuned, because for this premiere episode, we're going to be joined by a special 4th co-host for this one. And I'm super excited to finally get him on. It's going to be fantastic. But
we're getting somebody else?
Well, not permanently, but the summer of collaborations, because I'm putting in the work of the connections we made at the New Jersey Wrestle show. I'm finally putting that into practice now that we've gotten through scheduling and everything. I'm excited. It's going to be fantastic. We'll talk offline. But you can catch the 3 of us once again doing our predictions for Money in the Bank. So we got to get up on out of here and go ahead and do that. But thank you for tuning into another fantastic episode of Friday Night Faction from all of us here and the rest of the BC Wrestle Pod team. Remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay iconic, but more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We will catch you for the newly revamped live version of Friday Night Factions next week. But until then, adios, sayonara, and tata for now.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's gonna happen next time? Well, you're gonna have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.